Hi, my name is Nate Jones. I'm a poet, writer, extending, as it were, my me to you. For those of you who do not know me, I'm inviting you on a front row seat excursion into who I am and what I'm willing to share. In boldness, in fairness, meaning there are some experiences you share and you have to take into consideration those who may be attached to that experience, and sometimes not everything that is good is expedient, if you understand what I'm saying. So in fairness, I want to share me to the best of my ability, taking into consideration the attachments to me. It is my joy and my privilege to share the God whom I serve. And he, through his providence, has led me on a fantastic journey that started at my ripe age of 16 and a half. Now, of course, God has been with me this whole time, but the formal introduction into this amazing, humorous God of mine was at the ripe age of 16 and a half. From that age until now, I'm 62 this year. And the plethora of experiences that I have had through my tenure on this earth, glory be to his holy name, is nothing short of amazing. This journey of mine began when I was living in Huntsville, Alabama. I had a family there. Children, a beautiful and awesome wife back then. And I remember the struggle of being a husband and provider and the like. And one day, in the home provided for by God, I knew I needed to have a means of income. Now, I was working, but it wasn't enough to compensate for those that found themselves in my care. So I went down to the Oakwood College Church to pray, and when I got there, they told me that the church was locked and that I couldn't use it to pray. And for me, that was peculiar and unreasonable, especially if it's the place where God resides. It should be the place where you should go and seek his presence. But to make a long story short, I couldn't meet with God there. So I told God that I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to meet with you in the library. A very unlikely place to meet with God, but it was the best that I can offer God at the time. So I go to the library with the intentions of meeting with God. Now, some people may say, well, you could pray with God or pray to God anywhere, but you have to understand My name is Nate Jones. My relationship with God is my own. Thus my reason for sharing it with you. So I go to the library to meet with God. Of course, I get there and I find God there. And I say, God, I need some money. And I heard the voice of God say to me, how much? My God is a God of humor. Trust me about that. So I said to God, well, I was hoping that you would tell me how much. And God is like, no. Write down a figure. So I wrote down a figure and God said, no, now triple that. And then I started looking around to see who was really talking. And God saw me looking around and he can read the intents of both our hearts and our beings. He's just that awesome. So I perceived that God was asking me, what? And I was like, well, God, that's a lot. And God was like, well, you came to me, correct? I said, yeah. He says, well, if you could do it yourself, well, why would you need me? God off the chain with his humor. So I said, okay. He says, now, go to the computer. And at that time, in late 90s, so they're around about Google. I didn't know too much about Google. I mean, I tinkered with the computer, and I knew of Google at that time. And so he says, no, go to Google and write you want to make this amount of money daily and see what happens. I go to the computer in the library and I type in. And out jump several things that I can do. And then I got quiet, somber, and God asked, what? And I said, well, God, these things I can do, but I need money to get started, and I don't have any money. God says, okay, go back and write in Google, you want to make this amount daily with no startup capital, without money. I said, really? So I typed in. And out jumped three things that interest me. But the one thing that interests me more was the fact that a writer can make this kind of money daily. I was like, really? And then I said to God, do you think that I can write? God says, write something and show it to your wife. I started writing, and in the midst of my writing, God went off. Sitting in the library, just writing to my heart's content, I finished in a few brief moments and whisked off to my then wife to show her what I had wrote. Of course, she liked it, but I said to myself, she's just my wife, and of course she's going to like what I share. But she had an interesting friend that didn't care too much for me. At least her demeanor gave me every impression that I was not even a good choice for my wife. So I handed it to her to get the real criticism that I was expecting to get. And what a wonderful test of ability coming from someone that I don't think appreciates me in the least. So I handed it to her and ran for the cover. After a few minutes, I didn't hear anything, so I kind of wondered what was really going on. So I go and seek to retrieve, as it were, my creation, only to find her asking me in real tones, "You wrote this?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "No, really, you wrote this?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Wow, I feel like I'm there." And I can feel God smiling on me. From that moment, a writer was born. Now, of course, my name is Nate Jones. I am a bushman, meaning I'm rougher than rough on every level. I'm rough with God, who humors me, because I talk to God as to a friend. I talk to God with the utmost respect, but in a way that is uncanny, in a way that is peculiar to me. Thus, my reasoning for sharing that unique experience that I have with God, with you, from the newfound talent awarded me in God. Writer. My neighbor told me to try my hands at poetry. So I did. I went on to poetry.com at the time, and they were out, and I started submitting poems, and they not only liked my poetry, but they began to sell my poetry for profit. And I was like, "Oh, really?" And then they had me down as ranked in the top 5% of poets in the world. And I was proud of that accomplishment. I don't know what it meant. And for some, it might not mean a lot. But to me, it was a confirmation that what I have was not only unique, but valuable. If it is valuable for someone else to make a profit off it, why not me? So here we are, many moons and years later, and I still have not done what I believe God is asking me to do, and I get lazy along the way. But now I have a renewed vigor, since which I've been divorced, and I won't get into the ramifications of all those things that happen along the way, but suffice it to say, yeah, I was not meat. Yeah. And so here I am now, seeking to do the very thing that I believe that I've been called in this world to do. And that is to share me with the world in my own words and way. And I'm giving you that front row seat. To see me do what it is I do. My name is Nate Jones. Welcome aboard, shipmates.